So it's wonderful. I'm Heidi here again from the Wisdom Factory, and today we do another episode of the African Dialogues. I have here with me Linda Shuma, who I have known in the Gaia project, which is from the Presencing Institute. I think you know maybe Otto Sharma, and he is doing great work in outside in the world, but also of getting us together. We were, I think, 1,000 people in this project he did online. And in one of the breakout rooms, I met Linda. And as you maybe know already, I'm excited about Africa. I want to learn more. And Linda is from Kenya. And she will tell us a little bit about herself and her work, which seems to me very, very important. We will talk about that in a minute. Linda, could you tell us something about you?
All right. Thank you so much, Heidi. It is a pleasure being here with you this morning. I am Linda Shuma, as you have said, Kenyan living in Mombasa, which is one of the coastal cities of Kenya on the East African coast. I work around women, children, and youth, and co-founded an organization called Women and Girls Empowerment. And very much so, my daily life revolves around empowering women, children, and youth as an integral part of the society.
So how come that you came here? You know, how was your life as a woman in Africa? I think it's not easy, no, to come up and to come out of the traditions and do something for other women. How come that you are so empowered?
I am empowered because I am blessed to have had a parent that took interest and made sure that I went to school, that encouraged me to be all that I am, and basically let me know that I have no limits. I can be all that I want to be. I can do all that I want to do and achieve my highest potential. I moved into Mombasa a couple of years ago, and Mombasa is basically what you would call home for me. It is the home of my great-grandparents. And having been being born and brought up in the capital city of Kenya, Nairobi, I moved into Mombasa a couple of years ago. And some of the things that really stood out for me was the high number of girls that dropped out of school because of early pregnancy, early marriages. You had Mombasa is generally a very hot climate. And you had women walking the streets all day long with their children saddled on their backs, selling fruits and vegetables, probably brooms and things like that, trying to earn a daily living for themselves and for their children. And as I looked at that over and over again, one of the things that I asked myself was, how can this woman be empowered to achieve a lot more, to improve the quality of her life and improve the quality of her children? So that is basically how I got into the empowerment space. Seeing that a lot more could be done and people have a lot more to offer, but are not necessarily able to achieve that because they probably know better.
Yeah. So you saw the women who, despite of the heat, had to run around to work for the work, try to sell something to somebody just to have their children fed, and you thought they need I don't want to say a better life, but it maybe an easier life, or a life where they can have better circumstances, let's say that. And so what did you do? What you say you
Yes, improve their circumstances.
Go ahead.
Together with a friend, we co-founded a community-based organization. And as we co-founded that organization, one of the things that we said that we intentionally want to do is be able to mentor. And so we look at everything our organization does from the perspective of mentoring. Because again, one of the biggest gaps that we realized we have in community right now is the lack of the mentoring aspect. It has been lost probably because of a lot of westernization, a lot of people moving from community to individualism, and the aspect of mentoring, which was really core in the different societies across Africa, had basically been lost. In the African context, young boys were mentored by their grandfathers and uncles who stood up as fathers. Young girls had their aunts and grandmothers to be able to lead them and hold their hand and support them from the back. As we have modernized and moved away from our cultural settings, a lot of that has been lost. People generally parented as community. So the child did not belong to just their parents. A child belonged to the community, could be disciplined by anyone in the community. A child was accountable, like everyone, I mean, every individual was accountable to a bigger collective, which was the community. That, of course, has been lost. A lot of values, a lot of learning and teaching has been lost because of moving away from that kind of a setup into a more modern setup where people barely interact even with their next door neighbor, despite living in a block of flats with your doors facing each other. So that's basically where we came from.
You know what is so bad when development happens? Often we don't reintegrate what has been good from the stage before. And so we lose important things. And it's such a shame that you have adopted the bad Western ways of being together. You know, we are not together. We are so highly individualized. We, you know, when you say some bad word to a child of somebody else, you know, it's a real problem. But it feels so much more natural that the grandparents and the whole, let's say, tribe around is responsible for the children, and not just the mothers. The mothers today are overworked. They have too many responsibilities because they have nobody around to take care for the children. And so the children logically are sort of abandoned, you know, and go wild in not a good way. So it's such a shame that we throw away the baby out with the bathwater together with developing into new stages. So as I understand, okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to add and say that in every phase of life that we get into, there is no manual. When you get married, there is no manual on how marriage should be carried out. When you become a parent, there is no manual on how to parent. Doing it as a collective actually makes things a lot easier, because then we are able to share experiences, we are able to learn from each other, we are able to support each other, even through the difficult stages that you go through in whatever it is that you're going through in life. So that is so important for us to be able to get back into, that we are able to do. And even as I say, we are getting to westernization, I think I would use that with caution, because even in the Western cultures, there was a lot of collectiveness. People looked out for each other. People, I mean, traditionally and historically, people looked out for each other. People fed each other in times of hunger and war and such circumstances. So it's really just going back to the basics of what humanity is.
Exactly. We have in all our excitement about new ways of living, and we have forgotten the human aspect, what we really are as humans. And when I was at the conference in South Africa, it was called Doing Human Better. And I think that's really what we what we need, So yeah, tell me a little more about how you are doing human better. You said you are mentoring, and that's true. We don't have mentors. Normally, when you are in a nucleus family, you have just the parents. And if you happen to have parents who are not really very good, you have a problem, because there's nobody else normally. And children who grow up in dysfunctional families, unless they have at least one person, an aunt or somebody, a teacher or some, who is really embracing them as a human and giving them guidance and mentoring, normally then the children go crazy too, because, and this in a big community wouldn't happen in the same way, because there are enough people to learn from and to ask. So how are you creating that?
Yeah, so for me, I'm trying to create that, and I am creating that. Not just trying, I am doing it, is by actually trying to reaffirm the different people that I come across in my day-to-day living. We work in generally very low-income communities, communities that are struggling to earn their daily bread, communities that are struggling to go to school and be in school. A lot of the children that we work with probably come to school with tattered uniform. Most of them do not have access to all the school texts that they need for their schoolwork. And the results for our national exams, especially in the communities that we work around, are extremely poor. So a child comes from an economically challenged environment. They are not able to excel in their education because of the different challenges that they're facing. They're not able to do well. They're not able to see anything better. We face a very big challenge with the drug and alcohol abuse around Mombasa as well. And for many of these children, they grow around so much despondency. If there's no reaffirming, reassuring voice for them, just as you said, then they are likely to find themselves in the same cycle. And for me, my daily challenge to self is to be able to be that positive voice, and to let a child know, to let a woman know that it doesn't have to remain this way. You are valuable, you are able, and you can do it. how do we change this story? Does this story have to remain this way? Can you be the person that begins to project positivity for the people around you? Can you be the person that projects different, and the good things don't have to be for others? You can be part of the good things. You can possess the good things. You can be all that you want to be, all that you dream of yourself being. So just positively reaffirming, reassuring, and walking together with the different people.
That's great. And I see that there are two levels here. One is the economic level, which you probably cannot change. And we in the West once thought when we give enough stuff to the Africans, you know, then everything would be okay. But this is disempowering at the end, you know. When there were the stories around when I grew up that they sent tractors to land machines to Africa, not thinking that there is a lot of sand and that they were broken immediately. So all this, you know, crazy thoughts of how to help, but you know better how to help. So one level is the economic level, and the other level is the internal level. And what I'm hearing you say is that's the main thing, that you encourage people, even if they have very little, but they can make out of that more when they meet their own potential, when they develop their own potential. So is that? And then I would like to know how you do that. How do you do that? Do you have group meetings, or do you do processes together, or how do you do it?
Initially, we started out wanting to focus on girls in secondary school, and we developed a manual that would, when we started off, we thought, okay, we're going to a school and do this for a duration of about 12 weeks, which is a term. And we should have been able to talk them through this manual, walked with them, and once we're done, then we can exit. But one of the things that we quickly learned on actually going into the schools is that probably we need to walk with these girls for more than just a term. And so we decided, you know what, we shall do this for at least a year. So we'll walk with them through 3 terms of the school year. And hopefully by the time you are exiting at the end of a year, you have impacted enough. You have actually caused a transformation in the thought process of these young girls. Another thing, because myself and my colleague are both ladies, and that is why we chose to work around ladies and women. But one of the things that we realized is that we really cannot, it's pretty self-defeating to work with just the women and the girls. And we initially actually had boys coming into the girls' sessions, because we would go into a school once a week and have at least a 1-hour session with the girls, and we would do that continuously. And in some schools, we had boys coming into the sessions and saying, you seem to be telling these girls really interesting stuff. I want to sit in and listen as well. Of course, that was a bit tricky, but we did end up actually embracing them the few boys that actually wanted to come in for the sessions every once in a while, we just let them sit in, because as we sat, I mean, we were not talking anything too secretive. We're talking through life and the challenges that we face in life and what do we need to do in life. So we let them sit in into the sessions. And we slowly got to a place whereby we now ran boys mentoring sessions. Our biggest challenge, of course, was we are not men. So we really cannot speak with a voice of absolute knowledge.
Yeah,
we have no idea.
You as
we
a
have
woman,
no idea what the challenges of a man are.
That's clear.
But because we could talk from a place of humanity, so we began to have those conversations with the boys as well.
Yeah, that's great, because you are mothers, and mothers are educating boys too, you know. And what I'm thinking, when girls change their way of living, it's good that the boys know it, because the girls will be different. And when they want to have a relationship, the boys then have heard that girls are like this and that, you know, but the girl is different then, and then they don't know what to do. So it's a good thing that boys know that about women, and then maybe have their own boys mentoring. But don't you have men collaborating with that? Is it only women's task?
We do have a few men that come in and that have walked with us our journey of the last 7 years. But even that tends to be the numbers are very few. And we look out for men as much as possible to have them come in and be an alternate voice, because both the girls and the boys do need to have both voices and need to hear from both voices. Both men and women need to be involved in transforming the world, as it were, because we are in a generally very patriarchal society. And because of that, if we do not have the buy-in of the men, even this empowering that we seek to have shall bear no fruit, because you do not have the support of men. So for us, men are a key stakeholders. We seek to have as many of them. We interestingly have had a man come in and talk to the girls on topics such as menstrual hygiene.
Okay.
Very, very different way of doing it. But we know a man who is passionate about sexual and reproductive health as well as menstrual hygiene. It is what he enjoys to do. All right, come in and talk about it.
Yeah,
and it offers a totally different perspective.
Yeah.
Both for the girls that are hearing this generally taboo conversation, even amongst the women, but to be hearing it from a man, even just, it throws everyone aback and gives a totally different perspective. So that is just some of the things that we do.
That is great, you know. And I'm wondering if this is in Africa as it is in the Western countries, that the women are much more interested in change and in going ahead and, you know, life confirming. And the men are sort of let's say in the other ways, when there are personal development courses, at the beginning, there were only women about 50 years ago in these courses. Then slowly some men came in, and now let's say maybe a third are men and 2/3 are women. So there are still women pushing ahead this desire of development, of doing human better in some way, you know. Is it the same in Africa?
It is in a lot of ways, because I guess women are more in touch with their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Women are more expressive. Women are out there. We express ourselves a lot better. Women will generally sit and talk over a cup of tea and share whatever they're going through. And as they do that, they heal themselves and they empower themselves, though not necessarily towards achieving the highest potential, unfortunately. Men do things to become more significant,
Yeah.
and to have a stronger, louder voice. When men do things for economic empowerment and to be able to have financial freedom.
And for their glory.
Yes. I mean, a man and a woman both cook, but while a woman cooks in the domestic sphere, a man cooks in the external sphere, where he earns an income, and a very good income for it. Even as you talk about empowerment and personal development, the people that are out there on international stages, international platforms, is men, because they have gotten into the empowerment space and perfected the art. So they're out there. Most highly paid public speakers are the men. You have more men than women, I'm sure, if you're to do the search of top 100 public speakers.
Mm-hmm.
You will definitely find more men than women.
Absolutely.
Who are earning by standing up on a stage and speaking, giving motivational talks. Women have done that for ages, but we still have not necessarily mastered the art of earning an income.
Yeah, and stepping out and get visible. You know, we are more still, let's say, in the family realm and everywhere, but not be out and on the stage. Excuse me. What I noticed, I did an interview with a South African music director, and I was interested in Black voices because they, in my opinion, when I hear opera singers, Black opera singers, they have such a different voice. That may be racist, I don't know, but it's just true. They have a different expression, a different sound, and it's sort of going directly to the heart, you know. And when I did the research in YouTube, I saw that it's mainly men. It's hardly, as there are some women opera singers, but not very many. And the main amount of videos available is about men. So although, you know, as a person who wants to go on a stage, and I'm sure there in the school are more or less women and men the same, but then getting out to become famous and bring yourself out into the public space for women is still more difficult, or maybe we don't want it so much? What do you think about that?
I think generally a lot of the time women are pushed away from the public stages. And when you're a woman and you choose to come out into public space, in a lot of cases, you are shunned because you're seen as being a rebel. You're seen as being wanting to change what is normal. And so a lot of women faced resistance. Something I probably should have said in the beginning was that I am a politician as well. And getting into the political space 3 years ago, the number of women that are able to get into political space is very limited for various reasons, because you do not have the financial muscle. I mean, politics out here is seen as being extremely rough and not a space for women to participate in. When you participate in that political space, you are seen as being a woman probably who just wants to emasculate all the men around you. So it's not one of those things that a lot of people want to do. A lot of people, I mean, one of the questions everybody keeps on asking me is that, you're really brave. I mean, how did you do it? How do you continue to choose to remain in that space? And everybody keeps on asking me, are you going to continue to remain within that space? But it's simply because of the socialization. As I have said earlier on, we are a very patriarchal society. And out here in Africa, I think like most communities are patriarchal, where the man's voice is the voice, and women and children were almost insignificant. So that becomes the struggle that a lot of women do have to deal with. When you talk about something like the opera musicians, music has generally been a domain for men, especially when you're talking about music in a very public platform. Because if you're a musician, then you'll need to be going out to perform. You will perform in different places. So if you are a secular musician, especially, you are performing away from church, which was probably seen as the most secure space. And you'll find that there is a lot of female gospel musicians, but probably not in other genres of music. And that's simply because as a performer, you'll probably need to engage in travel and tours. As you go on tour, if I am a singing mother, who is taking care of my children and who's taking care of my husband? And that is where people would be coming from. As a woman, you need to take care of your home and you should be homebound. So
that's always
the environment that you should be in.
Yeah. The old questions we have had in the Western countries all the time. And then we started with feminism and all these movements in the 1800s and 1900s who have become, there is a betterment. We have now quite a few women in politics and in music. But you know, the main orchestras in Germany, for instance, even in the 80s, most were 90% men or 95% men. Now it's a bit better. And it's the old thing. A woman normally has the decision, either I have children or I have a profession, a higher profession where I need all the time for, because in the past it has always been that a successful man had a woman who was supporting him. But how many successful women have a man who are supporting them? That's still very new, and it's not, I mean, there are, yeah, but you can count them on the fingers, you know. It's not normal when a man gives up his aspiration and supports the goals of the wife. It's really still, and yeah, and in your countries, you are still more, let's say, behind in many ways of this development, of the liberation of the women. And you know what? I have several women's circles, chat groups, you know, where we talk about not just chit chat, but just more evolved topics. And we find that, yes, we have now the outside liberation. We have now the outside, let's say, equality in many ways, almost everywhere. In some places, there are also women more ahead than men. But we still inside, there is still this feeling, oh, I shouldn't do that, I cannot do that. So the generations of beliefs, no, of conditionings, which are still alive also in us. And I think it will take generations to overcome that.
For me, I think, and I say that it's for us to be able to get to a place whereby we are secure in who we are, because a lot of these fights are very unnecessary fights. There is no reason why men and women fight other than misunderstanding and feeling threatened. But if we all got to a place whereby we understood ourselves, we understood each other, and basically supported each other through life, we would sail through life much easier. We would understand that life isn't a competition, and it shouldn't be a competition. Can we just live life as us? Can we live life fulfilling the purpose that God created us for?
That's very wise.
And in that way, then,
yeah, very wise.
And that way we stop having a fight.
Mm-hmm.
There is no problem, and I see nothing wrong absolutely with a woman taking care of her home. But even as she takes care of her home and her children, what else can she do? How is she able to express herself to the outside world out of the confines of her home? Even as she takes care of her children and her home, can her opinion be sought on different things? Because even as she sits in her home, she bears an opinion on the many different things that are happening outside of her home. And even that which is happening inside her home. Because unfortunately, in many cases, and this I think is internationally, the voice of that woman and the opinion of that woman is never sought. How many of us actually seek the opinion of a woman? How many of us seek the opinion of our children? Because we have generally made it to be that. You're a child and you are to be seen and to follow what you are told. You are a woman and you are to be seen and to follow what you are told and nothing else. So that needs to change, because even at the point at which I express my opinion, it doesn't take away from you anything.
No.
So I think that it's finding that balance that we all need to find.
Yeah, and that needs women like you to be an example, to give a role model for the other women, to know that nothing horrible happens when you go out. Instead, it happen good things, you know. You can utter your voice, you can do what you like to do, and excuse me, and people need to see somebody who is already embodying what they not even dare yet to believe that they could be. And this example will draw them. And then you do active work to help women to realize that there is another way. It's probably a long work. I mean, it takes time until an enough amount of women have adopted this mindset. But without anybody like you working for that, there is almost no chance, you know. We always need a mentor, and that's why I like that you are saying you are mentoring people. Wonderful. And you are so right that we normally consider children as, what do you want? Who do you think you are? I was told in my childhood, you know, when you want to say something or you think you have something important. Also, if it's not important, but at least be heard, you know, and be accepted as a valid human being instead of something how can you say that, not yet ready, not yet worth. You have no worth, no value yet when you are a child, no. And as a woman, yeah, that was, I have to say, that's now very much better in the Western world, and that there are enough women who are coming out and doing their stuff and be a model for, at least in the outside world. In the inside world, no, when you have the problems with shame or guilt or all these things, that's still more difficult. I'm glad that you are there. How many people?
Eventually.
Pardon?
I'm saying we shall get there eventually. I think it's, I like where we are at. I mean, we met on Gaia, which in a lot of ways is and was a journey of self-awareness. I think a lot more people the world over are becoming self-aware. And even for those that are not self-aware, circumstance is pushing us and forcing us to be self-aware. So as we make this journey towards self-awareness, then we are also aware of those around us. So we'll get there, and we are getting there.
And the empowerment, each other's empowerment. And the good thing is now that we have the technology and we can talk together. Otherwise, I mean, I would never have known you. I would never have learned from you what you are doing, and all the other people I met, you know. When you are confined on your little place, your world is small. When you have the whole world available, you know, like we have now, thanks to the internet and to video, we can connect and strengthen, we say in German, strengthen each other's back. So support each other, with other words, in keeping up the spirit, keeping up the good work. And I I'm happy to support that in some way, what you are doing. It's really wonderful. Thank you. So I'm wondering, we have talked quite a bit. Do you have something, maybe an internet address if you have this organization? Does it have a website or some other ways?
We don't have a website, an active website, but we are on Facebook, okay. And we can be found at Wage Kenya. So that is at the sign, WAGE Kenya. If you key in that, you should be able to find us on Facebook and just be able to see some of the things that we do, some of the work that we're involved in the different communities that we get into.
Wonderful, thank you. And some other last word, what comes into your mind, what still needs to be said?
Oh, that could be a lot, but for me, it's, I guess, to let everybody know that we can be that which we want to be. And we do have a lot that has been deposited into us that can be tapped into and that we can give back into the world. So let us not be limited by our present circumstances. Let us allow ourselves to dream and be all that we can be.
That's a wonderful message, and really, yeah, that's what we need to observe and to do. So I thank you very, very much, Linda, and I wish you good work. And I will find you on Facebook and see what is going on there. And we might reconnect and see the progresses, okay?
All right.
Thank you then.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.